What should have been the serene start to a dream vacation spiraled into a nightmare at 30,000 feet before the plane ever left the ground. When a stressed flight attendant committed a shocking act of aggression against a pregnant black woman, she didn't realize who she was dealing with. Buckle up, Dark Stories fans, because this tale of karma and consequences will leave you speechless. She saw a target. She didn't see the woman's husband, a man whose phone contained a direct line to the airline's CEO. This isn't just a story about disrespect. It's about the incredible cascading consequences of one terrible decision. Hold on to your seats, Dark Stories viewers, as we dive into a storm of reckoning that grounded a flight and captivated the nation. It's about how a single phone call didn't just get an apology. It canceled the entire flight, grounding hundreds of people and unleashing a storm of reckoning that would captivate the nation. The air in the United Polaris Lounge at Chicago O'Hare was a world away from the frantic energy of the main terminal. Here, the lighting was muted. The scent of expensive coffee and warm pastries hung in the air, and the quiet murmur of conversation was punctuated only by the soft clinking of cutlery on ceramic. It was a sanctuary of manufactured tranquility, and Dr. Evelyn Reed was soaking in every moment. At 7 months pregnant, everything was starting to feel like a significant effort. Bending down to tie her shoes, sleeping through the night, even just finding a comfortable position to sit in for more than 10 minutes. This trip, their baby moon, was Marcus' idea. A final luxurious escape for just the two of them before their world was beautifully and irrevocably turned upside down by the arrival of their first child, a boy. Evelyn ran a hand over the gentle, firm curve of her belly, a soft smile playing on her lips. Across from her, in a plush leather armchair, Marcus was watching her, his own expression a mixture of adoration and amusement. "He kicking?" he asked, his voice a low, warm rumble that always made her feel safe. "Just stretching," she replied. "I think he's excited for Hawaii. He's probably dreaming of tiny surfboards." Marcus chuckled, setting aside his tablet. He was the CEO of a rapidly growing tech logistics firm, a man accustomed to high-stakes negotiations and relentless schedules. But with Evelyn, and especially with the prospect of their son, he was different. The fierce focus he applied to his business was transformed into a gentle, all-encompassing protectiveness. He had cleared his calendar for 10 full days. No calls, no emails, just him, his wife, and the Hawaiian sun. "As long as he doesn't try to surf his way out before the due date, I'm happy," he said, reaching across the small table to take her hand. His fingers laced through hers, his thumb stroking the back of her hand. "You okay? Comfortable? Need more water? Another one of those little quiche things?" Evelyn laughed. "I'm perfect, my love. Just happy to be still. And yes, I'll take another quiche if you're offering." Their journey to the airport had been seamless. A prearranged car service, no traffic on the I-90, and a swift, professional check-in at the premier desk. They moved through the world with a quiet confidence that came not from arrogance, but from a life of hard work and earned success. Evelyn was a respected pediatrician, having dedicated her life to caring for children. Marcus had built his company from a 2-person startup in a cramped office into an industry leader. They were a team, a partnership built on mutual respect and a deep, abiding love. Their luggage was a testament to their excitement. A large checked bag filled with maternity swimwear, breezy dresses for Evelyn, and linen shirts for Marcus. And then there were their carry-ons. Marcus had his sleek, minimalist briefcase. Evelyn had a stylish rose gold hardshell suitcase on 4 smooth wheels. It was a gift from her colleagues at the hospital. Inside, it was meticulously packed, her travel essentials, a book she'd been meaning to read, prenatal vitamins, and, tucked carefully into a side pocket, the first tiny outfit they had bought for their son, a simple, soft blue onesie with little white clouds on it. It was precious, a tangible symbol of the future they were flying toward. An hour later, the polite announcement for their flight to Honolulu began to echo through the lounge. "We should head down," Marcus said, rising and stretching. He gathered their things, his movements efficient and easy. He took the handle of Evelyn's carry-on. "I can get it, you know," she said, though she made no move to stop him. "I know you can," he said, leaning in to kiss her forehead. "But you don't have to." They walked out of the lounge and into the controlled chaos of the terminal. Gate C20 was already swarming with passengers, families with restless children, couples in matching vacation shirts, solo travelers staring intently at their phones. The orderly lines for boarding groups were beginning to form. As first-class passengers, they were in Group 1. They found the designated lane and settled in for the short wait. That's when Evelyn first saw her, the flight attendant. She was standing near the podium, her back ramrod straight, her blonde hair pulled into a severe bun that seemed to pull at the corners of her eyes. Her name tag read Clare. There was a pinched, sour look on her face as she scanned the assembling crowd, her eyes lingering on oversized bags and frazzled parents with a look of undisguised disdain. She exuded an aura of bitter authority, a stark contrast to the cheerful aloha spirit of their destination. Evelyn felt a small, inexplicable prickle of unease. It was probably just the hormones, she told herself. The flight attendant was probably just tired, dealing with the stress of a packed flight. She dismissed the feeling, turning her attention back to Marcus, who was telling her about a funny email he'd gotten from his father. Boarding for Group 1, a voice crackled over the PA system. Show time. Marcus grinned, pulling their boarding passes up on his phone. They approached the scanner. The gate agent, a pleasant-looking man with a warm smile, scanned their phones. Welcome aboard, Dr. Reed, Mr. Cole. Have a wonderful flight. Thank you, Evelyn said, returning his smile. As they moved toward the jet bridge, Claire stepped forward, holding up a hand to block their path. Her eyes were not on them, but on the rose-gold suitcase Marcus was pulling. That bag, she said, her voice sharp and flat. It needs to be sized. Marcus paused, glancing from the bag to her. It's a standard carry-on. We flew here with it this morning on a connecting flight. No problem. All oversized bags on this flight must be checked, Claire insisted, her gaze still fixed on the suitcase. The overheads on the 777 are configured differently. It needs to be sized now. She pointed a rigid finger toward the metal baggage sizer next to the counter, a cage-like device designed to humble travelers. Evelyn felt a flash of irritation, but she suppressed it. A pointless delay, but not the end of the world. It's no problem, she said, giving Marcus a reassuring look. Marcus, ever pragmatic, simply nodded and wheeled the small suitcase over to the sizer. He lifted it and placed it inside. It slid in perfectly with room to spare. It wasn't even close to being oversized. He looked at Claire, a neutral expression on his face. It fits. Evelyn expected a curt nod, an apology, a wave to proceed. Instead, a flicker of something ugly, disappointment perhaps, crossed Claire's face. It was as if she had been hoping it wouldn't fit, hoping for a confrontation. Fine, she snapped, her tone dripping with annoyance. She turned her attention to Evelyn, her eyes sweeping over her from head to toe. For the first time, her gaze locked with Evelyn's. And in that moment, Evelyn saw more than just professional fatigue. She saw a deep, simmering resentment. Claire's eyes lingered on Evelyn's designer maternity dress, her comfortable but stylish shoes, and the gentle swell of her pregnant belly. It was a look that Evelyn, as a successful black woman, had seen before. It was a look of assessment and dismissal, a look that questioned her presence, her right to be there in that line on that flight. Then Claire's eyes flicked back to the suitcase. Whatever, she muttered, turning away as if the matter was closed. Marcus retrieved the bag, and they started down the jet bridge, the encounter leaving a sour taste in the air. Well, she's charming, he said under his breath. Let's just get to our seats, Evelyn murmured, placing a hand on his arm. She just wanted to be on the plane, settled with a glass of sparkling water, ready for the 8-hour journey to paradise. The unpleasantness was over. Or so she thought. The jet bridge was steep. It was one of those long, articulated tunnels that descended sharply from the terminal to the door of the wide-body aircraft. Marcus, ever attentive, walked ahead of Evelyn, pulling the small rose-gold suitcase behind him, his other hand holding his briefcase. He wanted to be able to turn and offer Evelyn a hand if she needed the support on the incline. They were about halfway down when they heard it. Sir, I need to see that bag again. The voice was Claire's, sharp and commanding, echoing unnaturally in the enclosed space. Evelyn and Marcus stopped and turned. Claire was standing at the top of the ramp, her hands on her hips, her expression thunderous. A few other passengers from Group 1 who had been behind them paused, looking on with curiosity. Marcus' face, usually so calm, tightened. "We just sized it. It fits. What's the problem?" His voice was firm but controlled. "The problem," Claire said, starting to walk down the ramp towards them, her sensible shoes clacking with aggressive purpose, "is that I need to tag it. It may fit in the sizer, but with this capacity, we may still need to gate check it. It's my discretion." This was, to put it mildly, absurd. They were in first class. One of the primary perks of a first-class ticket on a long-haul flight was the ample, guaranteed overhead bin space. The idea of gate-checking a standard carry-on for a first-class passenger was practically unheard of, unless the bag contained something prohibited. Evelyn felt her husband's entire posture shift. The gentle protector was gone, and the formidable CEO had taken his place. "Let me be clear," Marcus said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous tone that Evelyn knew well from his business calls. "You are not tagging this bag. We are in paid first-class seats 2A and 2B. There is more than enough room. We are done with this." He turned to continue down the ramp. A clear dismissal. It should have been the end of it. Any reasonable employee faced with a confident, knowledgeable passenger who was clearly in the right would have backed down. But Clare Jensen was not feeling reasonable. Earlier that morning, she had been called into her supervisor's office and told that the purser position she had been interviewing and angling for over the past year was going to someone else, someone younger, someone she felt was less experienced. The rejection stung, curdling her mood into a potent cocktail of fury and self-pity. For 20 years, she had served coffee, fluffed pillows, and smiled until her jaw ached. She felt invisible, unappreciated, and then she saw them. Dr. Evelyn Reed and Marcus Cole. They were everything she secretly resented. Young, successful, happy, and gliding through life with an ease she could only dream of. The sight of Evelyn, pregnant and radiant in her expensive dress, stirred a particularly venomous envy in Claire's heart. In her warped view, they hadn't earned this. They were just lucky. And their polite confidence felt like arrogance to her. The rose-gold suitcase became the focal point for all her pent-up frustration. Seeing Marcus turn his back on her was the final spark. Her authority, the only thing she felt she had left, was being challenged. "Sir," she shrieked, her voice cracking with rage. "You do not walk away from me." She strode forward quickly. Evelyn, sensing the situation was about to spiral, put a hand on Marcus's arm. "Marcus, just let her tag it. It's not worth it, please." Her heart was starting to beat faster. The stress wasn't good for the baby. All she wanted was to de-escalate, to get away from this woman. Marcus looked at his wife, saw the distress in her eyes, and the fury in his own face softened into a tight mask of resignation. He hated backing down to a bully, but he would do anything for Evelyn. He sighed, turning back to Claire. "Fine, tag the bag. Whatever you need to do." He let go of the suitcase handle. Claire stopped a few feet away from them, a triumphant, malicious smirk on her face. She had won. She had forced the powerful man to bend to her will. But simply winning wasn't enough. She needed to humiliate them. She needed to make them feel as small as she felt. Her eyes dropped to the suitcase standing innocently on the carpeted ramp. Then she did something so shocking, so out of the bounds of any professional conduct, that it seemed to happen in slow motion. She didn't bend down to affix a tag. She drew her foot back and kicked the suitcase. It wasn't a gentle nudge. It was a full-throated, vicious kick. The hard plastic of her shoe connected with the hard shell of the suitcase with a sickening crack. The suitcase, perfectly balanced on its four wheels, shot forward as if launched. It careened down the steep remaining length of the jet bridge, bouncing off one wall, then the other, before it hit the metal threshold of the aircraft door. The impact forced the latches to burst open. The contents of Evelyn's meticulously packed bag exploded across the floor of the galley, right in front of two stunned greeting flight attendants. Her book, her toiletries, her prenatal vitamins, and the little blue onesie with the white clouds. It landed softly atop a pile of spilled makeup, a small, perfect symbol of innocence amidst the chaos. For a second, there was absolute silence on the jet bridge. The other passengers stared, their mouths agape. Marcus stood frozen, his mind unable to process what he had just witnessed. But Evelyn saw it all. She saw the kick. She saw the bag tumble and burst. She saw her personal belongings scattered like trash. And she saw the little blue onesie. A sharp, painful gasp escaped her lips, and her hand flew to her stomach, a primal, protective gesture. All the air seemed to leave her lungs. The world tilted, the muted colors of the jet bridge swirling at the edges of her vision. The confrontation, the yelling, and now this act of pure, unadulterated malice, it was too much. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and her knees buckled. Marcus, jolted out of his shock by his wife's gasp, turned to her just in time to catch her as she sagged. "Evelyn, hey. Hey, look at me." He wrapped his arms around her, his face a mask of pure terror. "Breathe, baby. Just breathe." Evelyn leaned heavily against him, her eyes wide with shock and hurt. Tears welled up, not of anger, but of a deep, profound sense of violation. And in that moment, something inside Marcus Cole snapped. The calm, pragmatic businessman vanished, and a husband and father-to-be, watching the woman he loved and their unborn child be put under extreme distress for no reason, took over. He settled Evelyn gently against the wall of the jet bridge, ensuring she was steady. He looked at her, his eyes asking a silent question. She gave a small, shaky nod, her hands still pressed against her belly. Then Marcus straightened up to his full height. He turned his head slowly and looked up the ramp at Clare. The smirk was gone from her face now. A flicker of fear had replaced it. She had kicked a bag, but she had awakened a dragon. The air grew thick and cold. The other passengers instinctively took a step back. Marcus didn't shout. He didn't raise his voice. He spoke with a preternatural calm that was far more terrifying than any yell. "What is your name?" he asked. Clare swallowed, her bravado evaporating under his glacial stare. "Clare Jensen," she stammered. "Clare Jensen," Marcus repeated, committing it to memory. "You just assaulted my pregnant wife." I didn't touch her. I kicked the bag," she defended weakly, her voice trembling. "You created a situation of extreme duress that caused my 7-month pregnant wife to nearly collapse." "That is an assault," Marcus stated, each word a chip of ice. "You intentionally and maliciously destroyed our property, and you did it all while wearing the uniform of this airline." He took a step up the ramp towards her. Clare flinched and took a step back. "You have no idea," he continued, his voice dangerously soft, "the magnitude of the mistake you have just made." He pulled out his phone. His movements were deliberate, precise. He didn't fumble. His thumb moved across the screen, scrolling through his contacts. It was a long list filled with the names of investors, politicians, and industry titans. He didn't have to search for long. He stopped at a name near the top of his favorites list, Lucas Kirby. He pressed the call button and lifted the phone to his ear. He never broke eye contact with Clare, whose face was rapidly draining of all color as the reality of her situation began to dawn on her. The other passengers watched, spellbound. This was no ordinary complaint. This was something else entirely. The phone rang once, twice, and then a voice answered. Marcus spoke, his tone still level, but now carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Scott, Marcus Cole. We have a problem on your flight to Honolulu at O'Hare." Lucas Kirby, the CEO of United Airlines, was in a board meeting in the Willis Tower. The topic was quarterly fuel cost projections, a dense and number-heavy discussion that he found mind-numbingly dull. When his personal cell phone vibrated on the polished mahogany table, he glanced at the screen, ready to silence it. But he froze when he saw the name Marcus Cole. Kirby didn't know Cole well personally, but he knew of him. Cole's logistics company, Nexus Flow, had recently signed a massive multi-year contract to overhaul the cargo software for United's entire global fleet. It was a 9-figure deal that had been celebrated as a major technological leap forward for the airline. Marcus Cole was not just a high-value customer. Oh, He was a critical business partner. His calls got answered immediately. Excusing himself with a quick, "Gentlemen, I need to take this," Kirby stepped out into the hallway, the Chicago skyline sprawling behind him through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Marcus," he said, his voice projecting warmth and importance. "Good to hear from you. Everything all right with the Phase 1 rollout?" "The rollout is fine, Scott." Marcus' voice on the other end was anything but warm. It was cold, hard, and clipped. "I'm calling about a different matter. I am currently standing on the jet bridge for your 10:45 a.m. flight to Honolulu, UA219 at O'Hare, Gate C20. Kirby's posture stiffened. This was not a social call. "Okay, what's going on?" "My wife and I were just assaulted by one of your flight attendants." The word assaulted hung in the air. Kirby's mind raced through a dozen nightmare scenarios. Assaulted physically? Are you and your wife all right? Do you need medical attention? "Your employee, a woman named Clare Jensen," Marcus continued, ignoring the questions, his tone relentlessly precise, "after baselessly accusing us of having an oversized bag, which was proven to be false, proceeded to kick my pregnant wife's suitcase down the jet bridge. The bag burst open, scattering our personal belongings everywhere. The shock and stress of the incident caused my wife, who is 7 months pregnant, to nearly collapse. I caught her as she fell." Silence. Lucas Kirby felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. This was a catastrophe. Not just a customer service complaint, but a potential legal and PR Chernobyl. A pregnant black woman, the wife of a major business partner, being subjected to this in public. It was indefensible. "Marcus, I am speechless," Kirby finally managed, his mind scrambling. "That is absolutely, unequivocally unacceptable. I am so sorry. Where is this employee now?" "She's standing right in front of me," Marcus said, his voice flat, along with about 10 other passengers who witnessed the entire thing. Kirby's mind was a flurry of damage control calculations. "Okay, Marcus, listen to me. Do not get on that plane. You and Dr. Reed are not flying today. Not on that aircraft. I want you to go back to the Polaris Lounge. I'm sending my personal executive liaison from the corporate office down to you right now. She'll be there in 15 minutes. We will handle everything. Your luggage, a new flight, whatever you need. Is Evelyn okay?" "She's shaken, but she's strong," Marcus replied. "But we are not going anywhere because there is another problem, Scott." "What is it?" "This woman, Clare Jensen," Marcus said, his gaze locked on the now pale, trembling flight attendant. "She is, in my view, emotionally unstable and a potential danger to other passengers. Her behavior was not just unprofessional. It was unhinged. I do not believe this aircraft should take off with her as part of the cabin crew. I do not feel it is safe." That was the checkmate move. It was no longer just a complaint about poor treatment. It was now officially a safety concern voiced by a credible, high-profile individual. By FAA regulation, any credible safety concern, especially regarding a crew member's fitness for duty, had to be taken with the utmost seriousness. Kirby closed his eyes, pinching the bridge of his nose. He had no choice. The potential liability of ignoring such a warning was astronomical. "I understand," Kirby said, his voice heavy. "You are absolutely right. That plane is not taking off. Not with her on it, and not until this is fully investigated." He was already mentally drafting the chain of command he needed to activate: operations, security, HR, legal. "Thank you, Scott," Marcus said. The mission was accomplished. "No, Marcus, thank you. And please extend my most profound apologies to your wife. We will make this right. I give you my personal word." Marcus hung up without saying goodbye. He lowered the phone and looked at Clare. The last vestiges of her defiance had crumbled, replaced by a dawning, sickening horror. She had heard snippets of the conversation: "CEO, assaulted, do not get on that plane." She felt as though the floor of the jet bridge had fallen away beneath her. On the other end of the line, Lucas Kirby was already dialing. His next call was to the head of O'Hare operations. The command was swift and absolute. "This is Lucas Kirby. Ground flight UA-219 to Honolulu at gate C-20. Immediately. A crew member is being removed for a personnel and security issue. The flight is cancelled. Find the captain. Tell him I ordered it personally." The command shot down the chain like a bolt of lightning. In the cockpit of the Boeing 777, Captain Mike Olson was going through his pre-flight checklist when his phone buzzed with an urgent call from the operations center. He listened, his eyebrows shooting up in disbelief. An order from the CEO himself to cancel the flight. He'd been flying for 30 years and had never heard of such a thing. He switched on the PA system, his voice calm and authoritative, belying the chaos unfolding behind the scenes. "Folks, this is your captain speaking. I apologize for this announcement. Due to an unforeseen security and personnel issue that needs to be addressed on the ground, we have to cancel this flight. I repeat, flight UA-219 to Honolulu is cancelled. We need everyone to please deplane and return to the terminal. Our gate agents will have more information for you regarding rebooking. I know this is a massive inconvenience, and on behalf of United Airlines, I am truly sorry." A collective groan rippled through the hundreds of passengers already seated on the plane. It was immediately followed by a wave of angry, confused murmurs. Cancelled. Not delayed, but cancelled. People had honeymoons, family reunions, business meetings. The cabin, which had been buzzing with pleasant anticipation just moments before, instantly soured into a cauldron of frustration. Back on the jet bridge, the passengers who had witnessed the incident looked at Marcus with a mixture of awe and fear. They had just seen a man move a mountain with a phone call. The gate agent, his face a picture of bewilderment, came rushing down the ramp. 2 airport security officers were close behind him. "Sir, ma'am, what's going on?" "Operations just told us the flight is cancelled," he asked, looking at Marcus. Marcus simply pointed at Clare. "Talk to her." The security officers flanked Clare, their expressions stern. "Ma'am," one of them said, his voice brooking no argument, "you need to come with us. Please bring your belongings." Clare looked as if she had been turned to stone. She couldn't move, couldn't speak. Her 20-year career, her life, was dissolving in front of her eyes. The officer had to gently but firmly take her by the arm to get her to move. As they escorted her up the ramp, a passenger who had been watching the whole time, a young woman holding a phone, lowered her device, her eyes wide. She had just recorded everything. The kick, the argument, the phone call. Meanwhile, the passengers from the plane began to stream back into the jet bridge, their faces etched with anger and confusion. "What happened? Why is it cancelled?" a man in a floral shirt demanded. "Some kind of security issue," another passenger offered. Their eyes fell on the scene. Evelyn was now sitting on one of the built-in benches on the jet bridge, Marcus kneeling in front of her, holding a bottle of water he'd gotten from a galley attendant. At their feet were the scattered contents of her suitcase. The little blue onesie was still there, a beacon of innocence in the mess. The passengers put 2 and 2 together. The upset pregnant woman, the angry-looking flight attendant being escorted away by security, the cancelled flight. It was obvious they were at the center of it. And as is often the case with a crowd, the frustration needed a target. "Did they do this?" someone muttered. "They got our flight cancelled." The murmur spread, turning from confusion to misplaced resentment. The crowd, ignorant of the cause, began to see Marcus and Evelyn not as victims, but as the source of their profound inconvenience. The atmosphere on the jet bridge, already tense, began to turn hostile. The young woman who had recorded the entire incident was named Jessica Riley. She was a 22-year-old aspiring journalist and travel blogger on her way to Hawaii for a graduation trip, a gift from her parents. Her blog, Jess Jetsets, had a modest following, but she had a keen eye for stories and a quicker thumb. What she had just captured was, she knew instantly, pure dynamite. As she stood in the now chaotic gate area, surrounded by hundreds of furious passengers, Jessica's journalistic instincts took over. She watched the scene unfold. The security guards leading a stone-faced Claire Jensen away. Marcus Cole, protectively shielding his distraught Distraught wife as a United executive in a sharp suit rushed to their side, speaking in hushed, apologetic tones. The angry glares from other travelers were palpable. They didn't know the full story, but they knew their vacations were ruined, and they saw a black couple being given special treatment. "Can you believe this?" a man behind her snarled to his companion. "They probably complained about their seat and got the whole flight cancelled." The entitlement. Jessica knew better. She had seen the kick. She had heard Claire's shriek. She had seen Evelyn's knees buckle. She had the truth saved in a 94-second video on her phone. She quickly found a quiet corner, her heart pounding with adrenaline. She trimmed the video, cutting out the shaky beginning and end, focusing on the core of the drama: Claire's aggressive march down the ramp, the heated exchange, the shocking kick, the suitcase exploding, Evelyn's collapse, and Marcus' chillingly calm phone call. She didn't have audio of the call itself, but the visual was powerful enough. She uploaded it to X, formerly Twitter, her fingers flying across the screen as she crafted the caption. Unbelievable scene on UA 219 at O'Hare. United flight attendant viciously kicks pregnant passenger's bag down the jet bridge, causing her to collapse. Husband makes one phone call, and the entire flight gets cancelled. Employee escorted out by security. #United Airlines #flight from hell #viral. She attached the video and hit post. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Then a few of her followers liked it. Someone retweeted it, then another, and another. It was like watching a fuse burn. Within 10 minutes, the video had 1,000 views. Within 20 minutes, it had 50,000. News outlets, always monitoring social media for breaking stories, began to pick it up. The initial tweet was retweeted by a major Chicago news anchor. Then it exploded. The video was raw, visceral, and unambiguous. There was no denying what it showed. The image of a uniformed flight attendant kicking a bag, followed by the sight of a pregnant woman falling, was incredibly inflammatory. The racial dynamics, though unstated in the tweet, were impossible to ignore. A white flight attendant in a position of authority aggressing against a black couple. The narrative that had been forming in the gate area, that of entitled passengers causing trouble, was instantly obliterated for anyone who saw the video. The court of public opinion was now in session, and the verdict was swift and brutal. By the time Marcus and Evelyn were being discreetly escorted by the executive liaison, Victoria, through a private service tunnel to a waiting black car, the story was the #1 trending topic in the United States. Clare Jensen's name, clearly visible on her uniform in the video, was plastered everywhere. Amateur internet sleuths had already found her social media profiles. Her face was being shared across Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, often accompanied by captions filled with outrage and vitriol. "This is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen," one comment read. "She deserves to be fired and charged." The look on her face, pure hate. "So glad the husband had the power to shut it down. My heart broke for that poor pregnant woman. I hope she and the baby are okay." United Airlines was in full-blown crisis mode. Their social media channels were a raging inferno. Every post, even unrelated ones about new routes or fare sales, was being bombarded with links to Jessica's video and demands for a response. The #United shame was gaining traction. In a sterile conference room at the O'Hare corporate offices, a pale and trembling Clare Jensen sat opposite two stern-faced individuals, a senior HR executive and a member of United's legal team. Her union representative sat beside her, looking grim. I was having a bad day," Clare stammered, her voice hoarse from crying. "I was passed over for a promotion. I was stressed. I don't know why I did it." The HR executive, a woman named Helen, slid a tablet across the table. On the screen was Jessica's video, now with over 3 million views. "A bad day, Miss Jensen? This is what you call a bad day?" Clare watched the video of herself, her face contorting in horror. Seeing her own actions from an outside perspective was devastating. She looked like a monster. I'm not a racist," she whispered, though the word had not yet been spoken in the room. "Your personal beliefs are not our primary concern right now," the lawyer cut in, his voice devoid of sympathy. Our concern is that a uniformed employee of this airline was captured on video committing an act of aggression against a passenger, destroying her property, causing physical and emotional distress to a pregnant woman, and creating a safety hazard. As a direct result of your actions, this airline was forced to cancel a fully booked flight, inconveniencing 340 passengers, and is now at the center of a global media firestorm. The financial and reputational damages are incalculable. Her union rep tried to intervene. Clare is a 20-year employee with a clean record. This was a momentary lapse in judgment under extreme stress. A momentary lapse? Helen interrupted, her voice sharp. She argued with the passengers, was proven wrong about the bag size, and then pursued them down a jet bridge to continue the harassment, culminating in a physical act. That is not a lapse. That is a campaign. Your employment with United Airlines is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises. Clare felt the world drop out from under her. Terminated. After 20 years. You can't, we can, and we have, the lawyer said coldly. You will be receiving information regarding your final pay and COBRA eligibility. I would also advise you to seek legal counsel of your own. Given the circumstances, criminal charges are a distinct possibility. Meanwhile, in a suite at the Peninsula Hotel downtown, which United had booked for them indefinitely, Evelyn was resting on a plush sofa, a warm blanket draped over her. Marcus sat beside her, holding her hand, his phone buzzing incessantly on the coffee table. Victoria, the executive liaison, had been a model of efficiency and contrition, ensuring every possible comfort was provided. Their original, undamaged luggage had been retrieved and delivered, and a doctor had been called to check on Evelyn, who, thankfully, was physically unharmed, though deeply shaken. Marcus finally picked up his phone and saw the flood of notifications. A friend had sent him the link to Jessica's video. He watched it, his jaw clenching. Seeing it all again, the kick, Evelyn's fall, reignited his fury. But he also saw the tidal wave of public support. Then he saw a news article that made his blood run cold. It was from a right-wing aggregator site, and it had a different spin. The headline read, "Woke corporate cancels flight after privileged couple bullies hardworking flight attendant." The article, devoid of the video, painted Clare as the victim, a working-class woman standing up to arrogant elites. It was filled with fabricated quotes from anonymous passengers who claimed Marcus had been aggressive and demanding from the start. It was a complete inversion of reality, designed to stoke division and play on resentment. The comments below this article were a dark mirror image of the ones on X. See, this is what happens. Regular people get trampled by the 1%. I bet he played the race card to get what he wanted. Good for her. Someone has to stand up to these people. The battle was no longer just about a kicked suitcase. It had become a flashpoint in a culture war. Marcus and Evelyn weren't just a couple anymore. They were symbols. To one side, they were victims of racist aggression. To the other, they were the embodiment of entitled woke privilege. Don't read that trash, Evelyn said softly, seeing the look on his face. They're turning us into villains, he murmured, showing her the headline. Evelyn sighed, leaning her head on his shoulder. They were always going to. For some people, we were the villains the second we walked up to the first-class line. This just gave them a story to tell themselves. Just then, Victoria entered the room, her expression grave. Mr. Cole, Dr. Reed, United is preparing to release an official statement. They would like to know if you'd be willing to release a joint statement or if you have any requests. Marcus looked at Evelyn. He saw the exhaustion in her eyes, but also a quiet fire. She was a pediatrician. She had dedicated her life to helping others, and she had been violated and was now being slandered. We have a request, Marcus said, his voice firm. A full public apology to my wife, and we want United to make a substantial donation in Clare Jensen's name to a charity of our choosing, a national fund that provides support and resources for underprivileged expectant mothers. It was a brilliant move. It wasn't about money for themselves. It was about turning a hateful act into a force for good. And in a way that would be the ultimate karmic rebuke to the woman who had caused them so much pain. The storm was raging, but Marcus and Evelyn were now ready to fight back. Not just with power, but with purpose. Clare Jensen's world imploded with the speed of a viral video. Being escorted out of the O'Hare corporate office, clutching a box with the meager contents of her locker, was the most humiliating walk of her life. Every employee they passed averted their eyes, their faces a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. She was no longer Clare, the veteran flight attendant. She was a pariah, the star of the internet's latest 2-minute hate. She got to her car in the employee lot and finally broke down, gut-wrenching sobs shaking her entire body. 20 years. 20 years of smiling at rude passengers, of cleaning up air sickness, of spending holidays in sterile hotel rooms, of sacrificing her personal life for a job she once loved. All of it was gone, vaporized in a single, stupid, hateful moment of impulse. Her phone was a portal to hell. Thousands of notifications, friend requests from ghouls, messages filled with threats, and comments on her 2-year-old vacation photos calling her a racist hag and a disgrace. She deactivated all her social media, but it was like trying to put out a forest fire with a glass of water. The images were already everywhere. She drove home to her modest condo in suburban Schaumburg in a daze. The first person she called was her sister, Denise, expecting a shoulder to cry on. "I saw the video, Claire," Denise said, her voice strained and distant. "Everyone has seen it." "What were you thinking?" "I don't know," Claire wailed. "I had a horrible day, and they were so smug. I just snapped." "You kicked a pregnant lady's bag down a ramp, Claire. She could have fallen. You look crazy. People from my church are texting me, asking if that's my sister." There was a painful pause. "I need you to not call me for a while. I can't be associated with this right now." The line went dead. Claire stared at her phone in disbelief. Her own sister. The next few days were a blur of misery. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She just sat on her beige sofa, the television off, the silence of her condo deafening, and replayed the incident over and over in her head. She tried to cling to the narrative that she was the victim. She had been provoked. They were arrogant. But the more she replayed the memory, the more the raw, ugly truth of her own actions burned through her self-deception. It had been envy, pure, simple, and poisonous. Meanwhile, United Airlines, guided by a top-tier crisis PR firm, executed their response flawlessly. They released a powerful statement that evening. United Airlines has a zero-tolerance policy for the behavior witnessed in the video from Flight UA219. The actions of the former employee are contrary to our values and our commitment to customer safety and respect. We are deeply sorry for the distress caused to Dr. Reed and Mr. Cole. The employee has been terminated. At the request of Dr. Reed and Mr. Cole, and in the name of the former employee, we have made a $250,000 donation to the Birthing Justice Fund to support maternal health care for women in need. We are committed to learning from this and reinforcing our training to ensure this never happens again. The statement was a masterstroke. It was a full-throated apology. It confirmed decisive action, and it included the detail about the charity donation, which painted Marcus and Evelyn as graceful and magnanimous. It also subtly twisted the knife in Claire's back. Her name was now officially and permanently linked to a $250,000 act of penance for her behavior. This only fueled the fire for the counter-narrative. The right-wing media outlets that had championed her now doubled down. They invited Clare onto their primetime talk shows, eager to present her as a martyr sacrificed at the altar of political correctness. Against her better judgment, and with the encouragement of a fringe media consultant who promised to rehab her image, Clare agreed. It was a catastrophic mistake. She sat opposite a slick, blow-dried host named Garrison Thorne, who fed her softball questions designed to elicit sympathy. "Claire," Garrison began, his voice oozing with faux concern, "tell the American people what it's like to have your life destroyed by the rich and powerful because you were just trying to do your job." Claire, looking nervous and washed out under the harsh studio lights, tried to stick to the script. "It's been a nightmare, Garrison. I was just following protocol. The bags on that aircraft are very specific, and I felt the passenger, Mr. Cole, was being very dismissive of my authority." "Dismissive or aggressive?" Garrison prodded. He was very intimidating, Claire lied, her voice gaining a bit of strength. He stood over me. I felt threatened. I was scared. Garrison leaned in. So when you nudged the bag with your foot, it was out of fear? Yes, exactly. It was a defensive reaction, she claimed, the lie tasting like ash in her mouth. But then the host made a critical error. Thinking he could control the narrative, he played the viral video on the large screen behind them. Now, the liberal media will show you this and claim it's an act of aggression. But I see a scared woman trying to maintain order. The problem was, the video was too clear. The audience saw Claire march down the ramp. They saw Marcus standing still. They saw the vicious, full-force kick. They saw her triumphant smirk just before the chaos erupted. The video didn't show fear. It showed malice. Then the host opened the phone lines. The first caller was a woman named Maria. "Hi, Garrison. I'm a flight attendant for another airline," the caller began. "And I have to say, that woman is a disgrace to our profession. There is not a single training manual in the world that tells you to kick a passenger's bag. She bypassed a dozen de-escalation procedures, and to blame the passenger and a pregnant one at that? She's lucky she's not in jail. She doesn't deserve to wear a uniform." Claire's face went white. Garrison quickly cut the caller off, but the damage was done. The next caller was even worse. "Yeah, is this the racist lady?" a man's voice boomed. "You felt threatened by a man standing still while his pregnant wife is next to him? You weren't scared. You were on a power trip. You should be ashamed." The interview disintegrated. Claire became flustered, her lies tangling and contradicting each other. She ended up dissolving into tears, not of remorse, but of self-pity, whining about her 20 years of service and her cancelled pension. She came across not as a victim, but as a bitter, dishonest, and unstable person who was sorry only because she got caught. The appearance backfired spectacularly. She wasn't a martyr. She was a meme. Her crying face became a gif used for schadenfreude. The media consultant who had booked her on the show stopped returning her calls. The sliver of public support she had from the counter-narrative crowd began to dry up. Even they had trouble defending someone so clearly and demonstrably in the wrong. The unraveling continued. The DA's office in Cook County, under immense public pressure, announced they were considering charges of criminal damage to property and reckless conduct. Her landlord started eviction proceedings, citing a clause in her lease about resident behavior that brings the property into disrepute. Her address had been leaked online, and a few protesters had shown up on her lawn. Her life was in free fall, and she had no one to blame but herself. She had let a single moment of ugly envy dictate her actions, and in doing so, had set her own world on fire. She had lost her job, her reputation, her sister, and now potentially her freedom and her home. The final, most devastating blow came in the form of a phone call from her estranged sister, Denise. Their mother, who lived in Phoenix, had suffered a severe stroke. She was in the ICU, and the prognosis was not good. "The doctors said we should come," Denise sobbed into the phone. "They don't think she has much time." A cold dread washed over Claire, quickly followed by the hot panic of logistics. I'll get a flight," she stammered. "I'll be there as soon as I can." She frantically searched online. The last-minute, one-way flights from Chicago to Phoenix were exorbitantly expensive, over $800. She checked her bank account. After paying her rent and bills, she had less than $300 to her name. The generous severance package from United had been obliterated by legal consultations and moving costs. She swallowed her pride and called Denise back. "Denise, I can't afford it. I don't have the money." There was a long, cold silence on the other end. "Claire, for God's sake," Denise finally said, her voice heavy with exasperation and grief. "After all this, fine, I'll buy your ticket. Just get here. Mom is asking for you." The relief Claire felt was immediately replaced by shame. Her sister, who had told her not to call, was now bailing her out. Denise forwarded her the confirmation for a flight on American Airlines leaving that evening out of O'Hare. The irony was so thick, Claire felt like she might choke on it. Returning to O'Hare was a surreal, traumatic experience. Every uniformed employee she saw sent a jolt of anxiety through her. Every passenger staring at their phone felt like they were watching her video, judging her. She wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, keeping her head down, feeling like a fugitive. Her flight was delayed, a rolling hour-by-hour delay due to mechanical issues. She was forced to wait in the crowded terminal, a special kind of purgatory for her. She sat huddled in a hard plastic chair, her phone's battery dying, her mind racing with images of her mother in a hospital bed. Finally, after a 3-hour delay, they announced the flight was boarding. As Claire stood in the line for Group 8, a woman in front of her, talking loudly on her phone, turned. Her eyes widened in recognition. "Oh my God," the woman said, not even bothering to lower her voice. "You're her. You're that flight attendant, the one who kicked the bag." Heads turned. People pulled out their phones. The whispers started rippling through the gate area like a shockwave. "It's her, the crazy United lady. What is she doing here? Look, she's flying American now. They'll hire anyone." Claire felt the blood drain from her face. Her disguise was useless. She was exposed. Panicked, she pushed past the woman and rushed toward the gate agent, holding out her boarding pass. "I need to get on this plane. My mother is dying." The gate agent, a young man who looked flustered by the sudden commotion, scanned her pass. It beeped red. "Ma'am, I'm sorry," he said, avoiding her eyes. "There's been a seating issue. The flight is oversold. We don't have a seat for you." "What?" Claire gasped, the world tilting. "No, you don't understand. My sister bought this ticket. It's confirmed. I have to be on this flight." "I'm sorry, ma'am," the agent said, his voice firming up as a supervisor walked over. "We had to bump the last few passengers to board. Company policy. We can get you on the first flight tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow morning might be too late," she cried, her voice cracking with desperation. The crowd was filming her now, capturing her breakdown just as her own rage had been captured months earlier. She was a spectacle of misery. "Please, you have to help me. Isn't there anything you can do?" She was a former flight attendant. She knew the rules, the loopholes, the language, but none of it mattered. She had no status, no uniform, no authority. She was just another passenger, and a reviled one at that. She was powerless. The supervisor stepped in. "Ma'am, you are causing a scene. We have offered you our only available option. If you don't calm down, I will have to call security." The word security struck her like a physical blow. Defeated, she stumbled back from the counter as the last passenger boarded and the jet bridge door was closed. She was stranded. Her own personal karma, delivered in the very place her downfall began, was complete. She had, through an act of malice born from feeling powerless, rendered herself utterly and completely powerless when it mattered most. Thousands of miles away, in a warm, light-filled nursery overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Evelyn Reed Cole rocked her 2-month-old son, Leo. The baby moon had been rescheduled, and they had spent a blissful 2 weeks in Hawaii after all the chaos died down. Marcus walked in, a soft smile on his face. He came up behind her and wrapped his arms around them both, kissing the top of Evelyn's head. Leo cooed in his sleep. "Look at this," Marcus whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "This is everything." Evelyn leaned back against his chest, her heart full. The incident at O'Hare felt like a lifetime ago, a bad dream. But its echoes remained, not as trauma, but as a strange, defining chapter. They still received occasional letters and emails forwarded from the foundation they had donated to, from single mothers who had received grants for better prenatal care, women who had been helped, unknowingly, by Clare Jensen's moment of hate. The story of Clare Jensen is a chilling reminder that the person you see in your worst moment is the person you truly are. Karma isn't just a concept. It's a reckoning, delivered by the consequences of our own actions. A single hateful impulse cost a woman her career, her family, and her dignity, leaving her stranded and powerless when she needed compassion the most. In contrast, the grace and strength shown by Evelyn and Marcus Cole turned an act of aggression into a source of help for countless others. What do you think, Dark Stories viewers? Was the airline's response enough? Was Claire's fate deserved, or a tragic spiral? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please give this video a like, share it with someone who needs to see it, and be sure to subscribe to Dark Stories for more dramatic true stories where consequences and karma collide. Thank you for watching.